Hello everyone, and welcome to a kitchen edition of Atman Unlimited. Today we're going to be talking meat. Now some people, they like to have razor thin slices of meat. Say you're trying to make a carpaccio or a Philly cheesesteak. You want these slices to be nice and thin and uniform. Some people, on the other hand, if you're making a sandwich, they would like to see their meat preferably as a large steak. So what would you use to generate these different cuts of meat? Well, the connoisseur of carnivorous carvings would use a meat slicer. More importantly, an industrial meat slicer. Now, back in the late 90s, there was a TV show that had an episode about a meat slicer that was very hilarious. However, I'm a little concerned about copyright to include a clip of that. So, if you'd like to search for it on Google, I'm sure you can find a clip of it. So, with all this talk about meat, what are we doing today? Well, we have a project where this is the adjustment knob to control the thickness of a meat slicer. Now what's happened here is that the knob to turn the adjustment on this has been lost. Gone. Now what I surmise from looking at this part is that there's a shaft on the slicer that goes through the center here, and we've got two set screws, one on each side, that will then clamp the shaft. And then the knob went on this taper. So this has about a 15th thou taper on it. It's smaller on this end and it gets bigger. And then there's a screw that goes through and then threads into the shaft. The reason why this is in two pieces is because these two screws can be loosened so that you can zero out your meat slicer and get the most accurate cut possible for your carnivorous treats. So we need to make a new knob so that we can accurately control the thickness. So looking at this, I think what we're going to do is we are going to machine an aluminum knob, and we'll pick up this inset right here so that it'll be nice and seamless. It'll look factory. We'll make the knob probably about half of the distance between here and here for its final diameter. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to machine this taper down and make it straight, and instead of tapering it, we'll put two flats on it. And those two flats will engage our new knob so that we can apply the torque we need to the shaft. Now this is not a high torque application, so it should be good. But if you can see real close on this part, see if we can get it to focus, there's a lot of scratches and scouring going on there. So it looks like over time the original knob has been slipping on this part. So that's why I want to change the geometry and the machining of this part a little bit. This is more than likely cast aluminum. So the first step for this project is we have to model just slightly this piece here so we can generate some quick CAM code to machine this part to look the way we want. And then we'll CAD 3D model the new knob that will go on here, cam it, and machine it. So this will be our first episode. Let's head down to the office and we'll jump into Fusion 360 and start doing some CAD work. Let's do some 3D modeling. So I have Fusion 360 open. I just set up a new file, so we got a new project going. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to model the lower piece, the existing piece that we said we want to modify slightly. Now while I'm doing this, I'm going to go real slow, real methodical. I'm not going to use any shortcuts. We're just going to use all the menu bars and icons. A lot of people gave me some feedback asking for a video like this. A lot of the other videos on YouTube, the people go real fast and they have a hard time following along. So I'm going to talk through what I'm doing so you have an idea of my thought process and how I'm doing it within the CAM environment. So the first thing that I'm going to do, so Fusion 360, one of the things that I really like is you can do not only parametric modeling from sketches and drawings, but you can also do direct modeling, which is just throwing some solids down on the model. So that's how I'm going to start this part. So we're going to model this. I've got a bunch of dimensions that I already measured, just trying to move us along here. So I'm going to first just make a cylinder. So cylinder, it wants to know a plane that I want to make that cylinder on. We're going to make it in the XY plane. And then it wants to know a reference point. So I'm going to put it at the origin. Now it wants to know a diameter of that cylinder. So our diameter is 0.9 inches. And now it's going to ask me how big do I want that, or how tall do I want my cylinder. So I'm going to draw this in the negative side of the XY plane. And then when I draw the knob, I'm going to draw the knob on the positive side. So that's why I'm doing this negative. So my first part of my cylinder is minus 0.450 inches tall. Okay, so we just made a body. Now, once we have a body, we want to do this create component. You always want to try to work inside of a component in Fusion 360. And you can think of a component as just a mass of bodies that are glued together. Kind of like if you're building a house with Legos, the house would be the component, and then all the bodies would be the Lego bricks that are all stacked together and, you know, snapped together. So we made a component. I always like to name my stuff. So this is going to be, we'll call it the mount. Oops. Come on. And we spelled it wrong. Okay, so we'll call it the mount, and we're going to make this our active component. So now any changes we make will all reflect in this component. So that's the very top of the mount. Now what I want to do is I want to tack another cylinder onto it. So I'm going to say another cylinder, and I'm going to select this plane of the other part, and then I'm going to go to the center again. Okay, so, and then just like before, it's going to ask me for a diameter. So then the lower diameter of this part is 1.25, and then again it's going to ask me for a height. So the height's 0.6. Okay, so that's as much as I really need to model to properly represent the mount. Now, one of the modifications we're going to make is we want to put two flats, one on each side, so that we have a good way to engage the knob that we're going to make to apply torque to the shaft. That way, if we do this, we don't have to have any set screws or keys or anything like that, and this will be quick and easy. So in order to do this, I'm going to create a sketch. Now a sketch is, for the purpose of this part, it's just a two-dimensional drawing that you can make on any plane. Okay, so I'm going to sketch on the top of this cylinder that we made. So I'm going to go to sketch, I'm going to say create a sketch, and then it's going to ask me what plane do you want to create that sketch on. And I can select, you know, one of the cardinal planes of the file, or I can select a plane on an existing body or component. So we're going to select this. Now notice it kind of highlights it and changes a little bit. Okay. Now we're sketching on the XY plane, and this sketch is associated with the plane of the top of that cylinder. So we're going to draw two lines here. I'm going to draw a center line first. So I'm going to say sketch line, and there's a whole bunch of shortcuts we can use. I know I'm not using them on purpose because I'm trying to get people to file a little bit better. So then we're going to say this top edge, and then we'll go all the way down here to this bottom edge, and we're good. And then what we want to say, We're going to add a constraint, and we're going to say this, and the center point is now coincident. Okay, now constraints sometimes give people a hard time to understand. What a constraint is doing is you are describing some relationship from one object to another. The easy ones to understand are parallel and perpendicular. So if you have two lines, there's two ways that you can describe the relationship between those lines. One, you could put an angular dimension between one line and the other and type in 90 degrees. Okay? Or you could click on one line and perpendicular and the other line, and then you can put a constraint on those two lines that says these are perpendicular. Okay? So constraints are just another way to describe a relationship between two objects. So that's what I did there. Now that I've got this this line here, I want to do an offset of it. So I'm going to go to Sketch, I'm going to say Offset, and then it says, okay, what do you want to offset? So I'm going to select my line, and then I want to offset 0.325. Okay, and enter. And now I just made an offset line. And then if I right click, I can say repeat offset. I'm going to select the exact same line, and I'm going to type in minus 0.325. There's a lot of ways you can do this. This is just the way that I'm choosing to do this now to make things simple and easy to understand. Now the other thing that I want to do is this circle, I want this to continue on. So you can project a line onto this sketch. So when you say project, what it will do is it will take a two-dimensional slice of whatever you're projecting and put it on your sketch, and that projection will be referenced to whatever you selected. I'm going to draw a circle here, and I'm going to make it the same as the other one. So sketch, we'll do a circle, and we'll just do a 2-point. We're going to select the center here, okay, and then we'll go all the way out to here. Now, the bad part about doing it that way is that if I change the dimension of the cylinder, then the sketch geometry won't change because they're not linked. So that's why we typically would use the project. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is I just want to do some trimming here. So I want to say sketch, and I want to say trim, and I'm going to trim this line and this line, that line, that line. I'll trim this. Basically what I'm doing is I'm forming, now it's warning me that I'm removing constraints as I'm doing this. So now what I did was I generated the shape that I wanted for that piece to look like. Now the other thing I want to do is, because I'm going to make a mirror image of this as a pocket, I can't machine, you know, square corners inside of it. So now what I want to do is I want to say fillet, and I want to go from here to here, and then I want a fillet of point, what did I say, 0.4? No, 0.2. Okay. And then we're just going to put 4 fillets on. And what I'm doing is I'm right clicking and saying repeat. And the reason why I'm using a fillet of 0.2 is when I make the other part of this, I'm going to use a 3/8 inch diameter end mill. So 0.2 will allow me to get in this corner without having 90 degrees of engagement in the tool and it chattering. Okay, so now I've got the shape drawn that I want, and this sketch is now complete. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say stop sketch. Now what I can do is I can say create extrude, and I can select this, and then I can select that, and we can say cut, and then under distance we can say 2, and I want to cut it to here. Okay, now what we're doing, the first part of this part was we were adding material. We were making a cylinder. You know, we made 2 cylinders that were put together. Now what we're doing is we're taking the cylinder that we made and we're cutting it. Now you could have done this the opposite way and drew the larger cylinder first and made a sketch on it, and then drew what you wanted and extruded it and added material. Here we're cutting it away. There are so many ways that you can 3D model these parts, and you know, there's no right way. There are some better ways and some not so good ways. The really good 3D modelers will make it so that you can easily change dimensions and change parts and modify parts and grow parts without having to do a lot of editing. Okay. Again, I'm just kind of trying to give you a starter and showing you exactly what I'm doing here. Okay, so we'll do our cut. So now that will conclude the part. That is all I need to model for the knob part that this is going to mount to. And this is enough modeling where I can cam it and we can, you know, do the machine work necessary. Okay, so that concludes the first part. Now we'll actually go and model the knob. Now we're going to model the knob. Now this part's going to be more complex. So I'm going to start the knob the same way that I started the mount. I'm going to create a cylinder, and we'll select the XY plane again, and then I want it in the origin, the center to be on the origin, and then the initial diameter wants to be 2.49. Okay, and then the height wants to be 0.75. And then under the operation, what I want to do is I want to create a new component. So I'm telling Fusion 360 that this is not part of the original component that we were making, the mount. This is going to be a brand new component. So click OK, and now over here you'll notice that we have a second component. So let's name our component. We'll call it knob. Okay. And then we want to make it active, because we're going to be actively modifying this component. So now I'm going to do the same thing I did last time and create another cylinder. This is considered direct modeling, and we're going to put it on the face of the first one and in the center. And then the diameter of this will be the total diameter of the knob. We're going to go with 3.2. And then the height of this cylinder is also going to be 0.75. So that'll give us a total knob thickness, call it, of 1.5 inches. So then there is the general outline of our knob. Now we have to do a couple of things here. We have to fix up the bottom, okay, and make it so that it will go on to the mount that we previously modeled. And then we also need to fix up the top here and make it so that it's a little ergonomic and you can turn it easily. So let's start with the bottom first. So I'm going to create a sketch. So we're going to do another sketch, and the sketch plane is going to be the bottom of the knob, And then on this sketch, see how it's showing a shadow outline of the first component? That's really nice, because then what we can do is we can say P for project, and then we should be able to select the outline of this knob. There we go. Okay, and then we can hit OK. So then what we did is we took the drawing of the previous part that we made, the mount, and we projected that geometry onto the bottom of our knob, so we don't have to redraw and redimension that. And if we change the original sketch and the original part, these projected lines will also change with it. Okay, so they're linked. That makes maintaining and modifying your designs much easier going forward. So that's why you want to use this project command. So then once we have that projected, that's part of it, and we also have to put a very large recess into this knob. So we need to sketch, we'll make a circle, 2 point, and we're going to put it at the center again in the origin. And then the diameter of the recess that we have to do is 2.2 inches. And then this will make it so that it slides over that over the lip that's on the knob, so that it'll mate nice with it. Let me just double check that dimension. Yep, that gives us a little bit of clearance. Okay, so that's about it for this sketch. So the bottom is pretty easy. You can see how projecting made our lives easy. Okay, so now we're going to do, once we have this sketch, we're going to do another extrude. So create extrude, and what we want to do is we want to extrude, here, let's make this component disappear. We want to extrude the whole piece, and we're going to cut. And we are going to cut a dimension of 0.625. Okay. Now what that will do is that gives us the recess for the two set screws that hold on the plastic indicator with the numbers on it. That holds on that to the mount, the metal mount part that we're going to machine. So now once we do that, if you notice, the sketch disappears. Now we still want this sketch because we need to do a little bit more work on it. So if you expand down here to sketches, you'll see that we have the sketch here. We can make it show back up by turning it back on. And now we want to extrude this part here. So let's do another extrude. Create extrude. And now we only want to extrude the center part. Now, you got to be careful of your measurements here. We're extruding it based on this bottom surface here, not the first extrusion. So this one needs to go down minus 1.125 inches. Okay, so you can see now how we can turn this sketch off so that we can see just the body. So you can see how very quickly we can transfer the geometry from one part to another without having to redraw it at all. And then with the radiuses that we put in here, we'll be able to easily come in here and take this pocket out with a nice 3/8 inch end mill. We'll be able to reach down in there. Okay, so that's the back side. So that's pretty much it for the back side. So now let's do the top. Okay, so I'm upside down on the top, so I want to turn the part around. So I'm right side up. This makes life a little easier. Now I'm going to do another sketch. We can do as many sketches as we want, and you can put them on all different planes. And a lot of people have trouble doing like angled holes when they're first starting out. That's where you have to get creative and make what they call construction planes. And then you can make a sketch on that construction plane at any angle. It can get pretty complex. we're just going to sketch right on the top of the part again. And then here's where it gets a little complicated. So I want to put a nice number of scallops on the OD of this knob. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to draw a circle. So we'll sketch circle. We want to lock it to the center. And then this circle, I already figured out all its dimensions ahead of time. This wants to be 3.6. Okay. So now that's our circle. And then what I want to do is I'm going to draw a line just as a reference from the center of the circle up to the upper edge of the circle. And then notice it automatically put constraints in for me, so it centered it, it made it vertical, and then it made it coincident. So that gives me the starting point of where I want my scallops to start. So now I want to do another circle. So we'll go over here, we'll say circle, and this circle I want to be right here, and I want it to be 0.8 inches in diameter. The reason why I want it to be 0.8 inches in diameter is I want to use a 3/4 inch end mill to carve out these little scallops, and it's always good to make your diameters a little bit larger than your end mills so you don't bite in and chatter when you hit the corner. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to make this circle a construction line, so I'm going to right click on it and say a construction line. So when you make something a construction line, it doesn't affect the selections when you do extrudes. Okay, so we're also going to make this a construction line. Okay. Okay, we're going to draw another circle here, and this will be the same as the outside diameter, be 3.2 inches. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of trimming here. And we're going to trim this guy. And then we're going to trim this guy. Okay, so now we've got our scallop formed. Now we also want to add a fillet to it, just so that it feels nice on the hand. Select our first, select our second, and then we want these to be 1/8 inch radius, so it looks real nice. So then we'll say repeat fillet. Okay, so that's a nice little scallop that your finger can rest in to turn this. Now I want to do 8 of these total around. So then what we'll do is we'll go to Sketch and we'll say Circular Pattern. Now it's going to ask me to select the objects. So I want this guy and the 2 fillets. Okay, and now so I got 3 items selected, and then it's going to ask me for the center point. I want it to be the center of my circle, and then it wants how many I want, and I want 8. Okay, so that will give a nice, scallop knob so that you can grab it, turn it, get a good hold on it. If you're wearing gloves, or if you've been handling a lot of meat and you got a little bit of grease on your fingers, they're not going to slide off. Okay, so then we'll click OK. And that is how we can very quickly and easily, replicate, a bolt pattern or any type of circle pattern. So now I'm just going to trim out the little pieces of circle that are left. Okay, I think we got them all. Okay, so that's the outside dimensions of the knob that we want to do with all our scallops. Now I also want to just create from the center here and just do a nice little recess in here just to make it look nice. Let's try maybe like 1.75 inches. Yeah, that'll make it look a little cool. And then we also want to draw, I'm also going to draw a hole here for the mounting screw. So again, off the center, and then this hole is going to be 0.2 inches, a number 7 drill. It's actually 0.201. We'll use a number 7 drill for that. And then we're going to create another hole. And this will be a little bit of recess for the screw. And then this one is going to be 0.4 inches. Okay, so that'll just provide a little recess for the screw head in there. Okay, so now the sketch is complete. So we can hit stop sketch, and now we're going to do all of our extrudes. So we'll create extrude, and I want to extrude all of these. And again, you can do this the other way of create a sketch and then extrude material from that sketch. In this case, it might have been easier to extrude it out rather than cut it. And we'll say cut, and then the distance we'll say 2, hey, 2. Fusion doesn't want to catch up with me. There we go. Now it's selected the center. There we go. Okay. So there are our extrusions for the scallops. And again, we got nice radiuses on there, so it'll feel real good in the hand. Okay, then we're going to just extrude the center out. So the very center, we want to go all the way through. So we'll say 2. And the operation is going to be cut. Man, Fusion just is not happy with me tonight. There we go. All right. So there's the center for the screw hole. And then we'll do another extrude. Sorry if this is getting boring. Everybody asked for a detailed video, so that's what I'm doing. So this one's going to be 0.45. Oops. Minus 0.45 to make a cut. And then the last extrude, if I did all my math right, should be this one. And we want this one minus 0.25. Nope, I didn't do that one right. So clearly, this extrude is too deep. Either that or else I didn't do my math right. So let's measure, and we'll measure from this face to this face. Oops, sorry. Wrong face. We're going to measure from this face to that face. We should have 1/4 of an inch. We only have 1/8 of an inch. Okay, let me figure out my math and I'll get back to you. Okay, I figured it out. I made this extrusion too deep. So this is good. I can show you how to edit one of the features you did. So down at the bottom, we've got this timeline. This timeline is really cool. So we can highlight and you can see that it lights up the different operations. So this was the extrude that we did to make that hole. So we're going to right click on it and we're going to say edit feature. Now here's another bug in Fusion. Sometimes the edit feature is grayed out. If you simply just click somewhere in the field, not on something, and then highlight it again and select it, you can say edit feature. Oh, and it works. So we did this to minus 1.25, and that is the wrong dimension. It should be minus 0.950. Okay, so you can see it's a lot shallower now, and then our hole's not all the way through anymore, which it should be because we did it 2. So that's this extrude. So let's edit this guy. Oh, there it is again. So okay, and then we'll do it didn't even do 2 anymore. Okay, well, we'll just leave it at a number that's large enough to poke the hole all the way through. So then there's our hole. That looks better. So the small hole's for the screw, and then this little bit larger hole is for the screw head, just a countersink. And then we can do another measure, and then we can select this lower face, and then this upper face, and we get 0.2, which is the dimension we want. So that's tall enough to hide the entire head of the screw and then some. Okay. So that's pretty much it for our knob. You can see how you can very easily and quickly 3D model this. And now once we have it 3D modeled, it's just a matter of generating the cam code for it. Okay. Now the one thing that I do want to do, I'm not going to, I will chamfer all of these edges down here with just an edge break while it's in the machine. But again, if you saw some of my last videos, I explained some of the issues with the chamfer tools if you actually model the chamfer. So I'm not going to model any of these edge breaks. But however, I do want to put a pretty heavy chamfer on these edges here. So let's go to modify, and then we'll say chamfer. Now it says select edges, so we'll select that edge, and we'll select this edge, and then also let's select this lower edge. So these are all the edges that are critical to the part. We want to make these nice chamfers. So let's put like a 50 thou chamfer on them, and that just makes it look, you know, a lot nicer, and then it will be really nice on the hands. You'll get a nice smooth edge. For knobs, I would normally put a radius on this. I just don't have a radius tool right now that would look right. I have really small radius tools, and I have some really big radius tools, but I don't have a nice intermediate radius tool. So we're just going to use a chamfer for this part. So there we go. That is the completed part. So there's our knob, and then we can turn back on the mount. and then there's the completed drawing. Now if we wanted to, we could make a joint and then interface the lower mount with this part, but because we use a projected sketch, we know it's going to fit. We could check the height. Let's do that. Let me do a save. And then what we'll do is we'll do a joint. So we'll do an assembly and we'll say joint, and then it's going to ask for component 1. Component 1, we will select this face, and we want this center point. And then for component 2, we want that face and we want the center point. Okay, so now it's putting them together. Okay, and we'll just say a rigid joint because that's what it is. And now, if you're curious on how your parts are fitting together, we can do a sectional analysis. So we can do inspect, section analysis, and then it says select a face, but you can also select a plane as well. So we'll select this plane, and then there's our sectional analysis of it. So we can hit OK, and now you can see how our pieces are fitting together. Now what's really going to happen in the real part, you can see I left a little tiny bit of space here, and then I also actually left a little tiny bit of space here because the plastic number knob, I didn't model that, sits down here. This edge will rest on that plastic knob, and then when you tighten the screw down, it will keep this sealed so that you know, no junk is going to get in there. Okay, so there we go. That's going to wrap up this video. In the next video that we make, we'll do the camming of this part, and we'll go through all the steps and the tool paths and the tools. So it'll be just like this video, step by step. You know, if it's a little bit boring, you guys can fast forward it. If you've never done this before, you can kind of see the thought process and how the different tools and functions are used. Okay, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. The ladies at the Wegmans Deli really recommended some good roast beef. This is really good stuff.